Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Daredevil number 184, cover dated July 1982, and boy is this an eye-catching cover featuring Daredevil holding a heavily foreshortened handgun. And what's interesting about this cover by Frank Miller, inked by Klaus Janson, is the use of the three major colors for providing all colors for 1970s and 80s comics. The three colors, those three colors, basic colors being yellow, magenta, you can see the magenta here, and cyan, or a kind of blue. So you've got those three colors used in the printing process at the time, and all working here together to make this a very, very eye-catching, impactful cover. Memorable one too. And of course the cover caption there, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." So what could all of this be about? Let's open it up to the first page. And this follows on from the previous issue, which was a reworking, a repurposing of pages that had originally been intended for issue 167, which was spiked by the Comics Code Authority. But Frank Miller and his editor Denny O'Neil made the argument to get that story published again, which happened in the previous issue with new pages by Miller and Janson. And here we have a continuation of that first part of the storyline with all new art and dialogue by Miller and Janson. So a great tight close-up here on Hogman's face, and most particularly his grin here. We'll see that particular panel repeat throughout the issue until the last time we see it, when he's got a different expression on his face. Of course, there's something off with the perspective here. It's almost as if he's using some kind of toothpick size fork for forking that spaghetti into his big mouth there. And he's smiling, he says, and always smiling. And he's smiling because he's the luckiest son of a gun on God's green earth, because he's got the best lawyer in the city working on his case, and that is Murdoch. And he'll get me off of that murder rap from the previous issue, no sweat. But Punisher heard on the television news that Hogman was going to be defended by Matt Murdock, and he's out targeting him already. So great panel sequence here where we're pulling out on Hogman's face, and then we're looking down the telescopic lens of the Punisher's rifle as he's prepared to assassinate Hogman. But somebody's behind him. Psst, says someone. Turn the page, and we get a lovely double page spread here in DeLuca effect of Daredevil tumbling towards Punisher and catching him, headbutting him straight in the chest and knocking him out of line from taking the shot and assassinating Hogman. So what a great double page spread there. Really great work on the anatomy and the dynamism of Daredevil tumbling across the rooftop and crashing into Punisher there. Title of the story, Good Guys Wear Red. And the creative team over here, Miller, story and art, Janson, finished art and color. What that means is that Frank Miller is providing pencil breakdowns and Janson finishing the details of the pencils in ink, and also techniques like the screen tone here in the background indicating the night sky over Manhattan. And interesting too, the order then of the remaining creator credits, Denny O'Neil getting a higher position than Joe Rosen, the letterer. And that suggests to me that Denny O'Neil is involved in elements of the story here, which makes sense because of the controversial subject matter, which includes drug pushing to children, and then Billy O'Corrin's decision to rob his, well, not rob, but take his father's handgun and potentially kill Hogman for himself later in the issue. So all of that would require the editor to help steer this particular comic past the Comics Code Authority. Great open border panel here of Daredevil springing away from Punisher as Punisher sets off some shots against him. Of course, the Punisher has a code of his own. He only kills criminals. So he shoots the chimney stack behind Daredevil, which falls on top of him, and the Punisher makes his escape. He says to Daredevil, "You're a good man, but not good enough." So Daredevil thinks to himself, gone, he got away. At least I upset his timetable, and for the moment saved Hogman for what that's worth. Not much. And then we get in his thoughts, as we get a nice little close-up on his face there with the uplighting too. Okay, so Hogman isn't the classiest client I've ever defended in court, but his heartbeat didn't jump when he told me he was innocent. That was in the previous issue, which means he told the truth, I hope. So is there any other way that Hogman's heart might have remained steady when telling Matt that he didn't kill Flapper, his associate, in the previous issue? Well, we'll learn in this particular comic that there is another explanation. So then we've got a scene at Heather Glenn's Glen Industries. She's inherited the directorship of that company since the death of her father. Great top-down angle on the window to her office there and the Manhattan skyline outside of it. Really interesting layout on this particular page by Frank Miller. So she's going through these contracts, signing them, and then something catches her eye. What's this? Atreus Plastics. I've never heard. So this guy here, Spindle, interrupts and says, one of our more obscure accounts, to be sure, speciality insulation or some such, nothing important. But of small trees are mighty forests made, eh? Just sign there. Good girl, good girl. So this guy is plotting, and so is the rest of the board, a takeover. They're plotting to move Heather out of her position, get her to retire off, be pensioned off, and take over the business. So that's a little subplot that Miller's been keeping on the low boil in previous issues, especially in the last one too. Now we have a switch of scene to the criminal courts building. Again, another interesting page layout here, interesting panel here. Two sides of the panel, open border, and then we've got this close-up here on members of the jury that Murdoch is making his speech to. At the time, he says, or weeks ago, young Billy O'Coran was charged with slaying John Flapper Phillips and acquitted. At the time, the prosecution was desperate to find a scapegoat for this highly publicized crime. They're still desperate. And once again, an innocent stands accused. But Murdoch says, my client is not a killer. Within the next 24 hours, I will receive evidence that the true killer is a man who masquerades as a solid, respectable citizen and uses his position to administer narcotics to young children. So here's little Billy O'Coran. He says, Coach Donahue, what's wrong? So the guy's sweating on his forehead. Nothing, Billy, nothing at all. So we're suspicious of this guy now in terms of what he might have been up to in the background. So then we have a switch of scene to the offices of Nelson and Murdoch, and Matt is working late on the case. He's expecting an important call, and who's the call from except for his girlfriend Heather Glenn that he proposed to at the end of not the previous issue but the one before that, issue 182. No, it was the end of the previous issue. Sorry about that. 183. So Heather there is calling him and talking to him about how she's been thinking a lot about us, the marriage proposal. And she says she's got a lot to figure out. She wants to come over and talk. But Matt is intent on the phone call he's waiting for, and it comes through on the other line. So he puts her on hold, and that upsets her, of course, because he's been not available for her in many of the previous issues. So their relationship, from his perspective, there's no problems with it, but from hers, there's plenty, because she's not getting the quality time from him, the quality time and attention that she wants. But I really like the device of the cord here, the phone cord, dividing the two tiers of panels, with Matt in his office and Heather out at the public payphone kiosk. So, and then Miller continues the device onto the next page, as you can see, where we have Matt talking to Coach Donahue, and he is accusing him of pushing angel dust, that it's hardly an acceptable practice for a grade school athletic coach. Imagine how Billy O'Coran would feel if he knew he's devoted to you and with his sister only recently killed by an overdose. These are all events from the previous issue. If you murdered Phillips, you'll face, no sir, I'm not saying that you did, and you certainly had a motive. You want to talk privately? Yes, all right. So they make an arrangement to meet at the school gymnasium, but meanwhile we can see happening at the same time on the other tier of panels that Heather's basically walked away from the phone and left it hanging as well. So when Murdoch gets back to her, she's gone. So that's not good for the nature of their relationship, and she's not going to get any advice from him about Atreus Plastics either. So then the scene switches 1 hour later to the school gymnasium in question. It's all in darkness. Great spotting of blacks on this particular page, and clearly Klaus Janson using a brush for inking on this particular page. Nicely done. So Murdoch just talks because he doesn't get a response from the coach. He says, a bagman by the name of Smitty told me you're Hogman's connection, his dealer here at the school. Smitty also told me that you were dissatisfied with your cut of the action. Were you unhappy enough to shoot Flapper and pin the rap on his partner? That would leave the operation open for you. Speak up any time, Donahue, life is short. And then he hears this growling and he thinks some sort of animal? No. Get tight close up on his eyes. Not an animal. This is a great page turn as well. After the ads, where we see Coach Donahue with his shirt off, absolutely whacked out on angel dust. Crazy. So now we get a fight sequence, and Matt there thinking to himself about the coach. His heart is racing, his breathing furious. He doesn't just sell drugs, he takes them. But he thinks it doesn't make sense. Something's wrong here. I don't figure the coach for a user. And even if he is, why do this to himself just when he needs his wits? Answer, he wouldn't. And I like the way that Matt is thinking and able to think as he dodges around the coach's attacks and grabs him around the neck with his legs there. He's so expert at fighting the likes of Bullseye and Elektra in the past that he's able to think logically while he's dealing with this normal man, even though this normal man's strength is doubled by the angel dust. So he thinks that he wouldn't, which means someone else did it to him, which makes him a victim. I have to save him, subdue him. So let's continue with this. This is a great little sequence here where we've got Coach Donahue, like in his madness, in his drug-induced madness and frenzy, breaking the panel borders. And then this close-up on him that Miller's developing panel to panel to panel. And Matt's got his legs right around the coach's neck. He's choking him out until he's knocked unconscious. And then a nice little DeLuca effect here. He tumbles away and thinks here, he's out. Better get him an ambulance. He's probably got enough garbage in the system to stop an elephant. I don't like this, not at all. Who juiced up the coach and why? So a mystery there, but you know, the implication is it is Hogman who's done it. So a tenement building. We've got a little scene here with a junkie. The junkie's name is Marky. And the thing about Marky is he fingered Hogman to the justice system. Shouldn't have fingered me, Marky, he says. Shouldn't have told the cops. You saw me shoot Flapper. That's why you haven't scored. Now, if you was to tell the judge you was lying or stoned when you said you saw me, solid man, I'll say anything. So he gives him his hit, and off the guy goes with his heroin. And also, oh yeah, so he spiked the dose and he's dead. What's it called? A hot shot. Yeah. Gee, did I forget to cut the smack like usual and feed him the pure stuff, pure Marky? So he's dead. He doesn't look too unhappy about it. And then at the court case, the star witness doesn't show, and so the prosecution must withdraw its charge of second-degree murder against Peter Grunter. That's Hogman's real name. So Billy here asking, well, if Hogman didn't kill Flapper, who did? And Matt says to him, I don't know, but the law will find him and punish him. It always does. And of course the irony is, here comes Hogman. He's beaten the rap and he says, no chance of another trial? None, says Murdoch. Then I might as well tell you that I'm guilty as sin. Great close-up on his face. And those big teeth again. There he is still smiling on this other page. And Matt just absolutely taken aback and shocked. And so Hogman gives him some money. Just my way of saying thanks. And then this silent panel of Billy running out of the courtroom. And of course, his heart broken by the whole experience of justice not being served. But this is a great page here too. Great colouring from Klaus Janson with Daredevil's shadow all around Hogman on the street. And so Daredevil grabs him by the scruff of the neck and tells him, "You're a pusher, a murderer. You've tricked an honest man into helping you, driven a weaker man to near suicide, convinced an innocent child that there's no law, no hope." And Hogman says, "You'll do nothing to me, Hornhead. I've been reading about you. You're a nice guy, a regular bleeding heart. You wouldn't punch out a guy just cause you feel like, especially a guy with such a delicate heart condition that he needs a pacemaker." And that's the answer to what happened in the previous issue. A pacemaker, thinks Daredevil to himself. So that's it. That would regulate his heartbeat, keep it from jumping when he lied to me. I've blown it. Hogman's free. It's all my fault. Got to find Billy, stop him before he does something crazy. So in the previous issue, Billy took a gun in order to shoot Hogman's associate Flapper, but someone else got there first. It was Hogman. And here we have Hogman taking a call from Billy, as it turns out. And so Hogman gets in the car with his associate Marky. What's he want? Asks Marky to Hogman. Money. What he's getting is dead. But who's this watching from behind a corner except for Punisher? Great layout on this page as well, with the high, what would I call it, like a high-rise apartment building here in the middle between these two tiers of panels. Then we're back in Billy's apartment building and his parents there, and the father indicating that Billy's taken the gun again from the father's drawer. He took it in the previous issue and he hasn't done anything in order to secure that handgun. So Daredevil swinging around, he's after Hogman. He'll head for Hogman's apartment or meet him somewhere, the school. So soon, outside the school, sure enough, Billy's there with a shaky hand holding the gun on Hogman. Hogman fairly confident. "Don't try it, kid." Marky's there with his gun behind Billy, about to shoot him, but here's someone else. It's the Punisher with another gun, and he shoots Marky through the back, out the chest. He's dead. The Punisher here, Hogman sees. "Give me that piece, bud." So he grabs the child and uses him as a human shield, but Punisher is a crack shot, shoots him in the hand, shoots him in the knee, and he's down on the ground and Billy's free. That's a great little sequence there. And the way that it's inked in, it reminds me of the first couple of issues of Dark Knight Returns, getting towards that style in Miller's art. Now we have a rematch between Daredevil and Punisher. Punisher, great laconic dialogue by the Punisher here. Much more laconic in Miller's scripting than Roger McKenzie's that we saw in the previous issue. Roger McKenzie's scripting of Punisher was much more garrulous. He's altogether a silent actor, or just laconic in his speech in Miller's script. So he says to Billy, "Go home, child, I'll finish this." And we know what that means. But Daredevil's there to interfere, and Punisher starts shooting at him, throws away the handgun there that he's picked up. That's a mistake. This is a great little sequence here. So he keeps missing Daredevil, and Daredevil says, "You don't scare me, Punisher. I've done my homework, and I know you're missing me on purpose." So great borderless panel there. And Daredevil at ease, leaning up against the side of the building. "You've killed dozens of criminals in your time, but you've never harmed an innocent. You won't kill me?" Punisher says, "I shot you once before." "Sure, but that was a tranquilizer," says Daredevil. "You're using real bullets now. That was in the previous issue." So a couple of silent panels. The Punisher holsters his handgun and proposes a truce that he'll settle with Hogman later. But no, No truce, says Daredevil. You're going to jail. So he picks up the gun from Marky's body and Punisher swings around. You wouldn't dare. And now they've got the pair of them guns trained on each other. So it's going to be a standoff. And the Punisher's shot. Interesting color hold here as well. As he falls to the ground, he's been shot in the shoulder, it looks like. And who did it? Who shot him? Looks like it was it Billy that shot him? Or does Daredevil shoot him? It's unclear. It must be Daredevil that shot him, but it's very unclear that he did shoot him in the shoulder. So Billy picks up the gun. Don't do it, Billy. Don't throw your life away, he says. And he comes in to make the case. We'll get him for killing Marky and poisoning Coach Donahue, I promise. So Billy looks like he's on a hair trigger in terms of whether he's going to shoot Hogman or not. But it turns out he doesn't. And remember what I said about Hogman's grin on the first page? Yeah, and what he said about that he's always smiling. Well, he's not smiling there days later at court, where he is indicted on the charge of second-degree murder for and based on the testimony, evidence supplied by Daredevil and testimony by the boy Billy. So now Matt, walking with Billy, tells him he did the right thing, but Billy's got a question there. Can you promise me Hogman will go to jail and stay there? And Matt gives him an honest answer. He says, we're only human, Billy. We can be weak, we can be evil. The only way to stop us from killing each other is to make rules, laws, and stick to them. They don't always work, but mostly they do, and they're all we've got. So Billy walks away. Yeah, I guess. Look, I'll see you around, okay? It doesn't look like he's been completely convinced by Matt's speech. So great final silent panel there. I mean, he's walking away with his shoulders hunched over, the breeze blowing there with the papers, and his sister's still dead at the end of it all. And then, last page, back to that subplot with Glenn Industries. So Heather's doing some investigating of her own, and she finds out that Atrius Plastic is a manufacturer of high-intensity plastique explosive, the purpose of which manufacture is undetermined. So what's Heather going to do about that? Next issue, Guts, which focuses on Foggy Nelson. Now here's the letters page. They're running 2 pages of letters in this issue, and they're all about Daredevil 181, which of course is the issue in which Bullseye killed Elektra. And they say up here at this writing, it's been 4 weeks since the release of Daredevil 181. By now, the mail should have dwindled to 2 or 3 letters a day from Europe or Australia, but it's still pouring in as if the issue had just hit the stands. So Daredevil 181 made a real impact, and a couple of funny letters in here, including this one. Dear editor, Frank Miller is a genius, but let's not forget, so was Hitler. Okay, that's a bit weird. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this second part of the 2-part storyline featuring the first encounter of Daredevil and Punisher. And let me know your thoughts on the issue itself in the comment section to the video. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like the video in YouTube. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.